welcome. If this calm, honest tone resonates with you, I'll appreciate your subscription. And leave a topic you want me to explore in the comments. Let's begin. You know, the more I listen to people, the more I notice something strange. Discipline has become a kind of punishment, a private prison you lock yourself in because you believe you have to. People are convinced that discipline means pressure, forcing yourself to work, pushing through pain, disgust, resistance, as if it has to be brutal, as if it's a tool for self-violence. And because of that, most people never even try to develop it. Who wants to willingly live under their own whip? But real discipline isn't about violence. It isn't about struggle. And it's definitely not about waking up every morning with the thought, I have to do this again. Discipline isn't energy or strength. It's structure. It's direction. It's the ability to say at any moment, I know where I'm going, and take at least one step forward, even if inside you feel a storm, emptiness, doubt, or exhaustion. Most people think discipline is some kind of superpower, something you either have or don't, like talent, like a gift. But that's the wrong way to see it, because discipline isn't a spark, not a rush, not an emotional high. It doesn't require inspiration. It doesn't depend on mood. It doesn't wait for your mind to clear or for motivation to appear. Discipline begins exactly where all of that ends. It doesn't live in emotion. It lives in choice. Discipline is doing what you decided earlier, not what you feel like doing in the moment. It's the ability not to let your emotions dictate your direction. And this is where most people break. Most people live entirely by what they feel right now. If there's a mood, they act. If there's no mood, they stop. If they feel inspired, they make plans. If the inspiration fades, they abandon everything. Their life becomes a reflection of their inner weather, not their decisions. But discipline exists in another universe. It doesn't ask whether today feels good or bad. It doesn't check if you're inspired. It doesn't wait for the perfect day. It simply whispers, you chose this, so you'll do it. It doesn't demand grand gestures. It doesn't demand heroism. It doesn't demand that you be strong. It only asks you to be honest. Honest about wanting to change your life. Honest about the fact that no one else will take that step for you. And when you stop seeing discipline as self-punishment and start seeing it as a form of respect, respect for the future you, it stops being heavy. It becomes simple, stable, quiet. It becomes an anchor you can rely on the days your emotions fail you. Because discipline isn't walking through pain, it's walking despite it. It isn't a war with yourself, it's a partnership. It's the ability to stay on course, even when the wind blows the other way. The biggest illusion people believe for years is the idea that discipline is not for everyone. As if there's a special type of person born with iron willpower, and everyone else is doomed. You have no idea how many times I've heard things like, I'm just not like that. I can't force myself. I don't have the character for it. But if you dig deeper, you realize the problem has nothing to do with character, or strength, or biology. The real problem is that you spent your whole life waiting for the perfect state before starting. You've been waiting for the moment when inspiration appears, the mood is right, your mind feels clear. Desire shows up. Anxiety disappears, and you suddenly feel ready. You've convinced yourself that discipline requires a certain emotional condition. Calm, confident, balanced. You believed that to begin, you must feel prepared. But readiness is a lie. The quietest, most deceptive trap there is. Most people don't fail because they lack discipline. They fail because they're waiting for resistance to disappear. They want to start only when everything inside them aligns perfectly. Enough energy, enough clarity, enough motivation. But life doesn't work like that. Inner chaos doesn't leave on command. Emotions do not rearrange themselves for your plans. And this creates the second illusion. A person starts thinking they're lazy. But it's not laziness. It's waiting. You're waiting for conditions that will never arrive on their own. There's another reason you believe you have no discipline. You've learned to confuse discipline with perfection. If you can't do something perfectly, you don't start. If you miss a day, you feel like everything is ruined. If something goes wrong, you think the entire path is destroyed. And because of that, you don't start again, because you believe it's already spoiled. But discipline is not perfection. It doesn't require clean streaks, beautiful routines, or the perfect mindset. It allows mistakes, breaks, pauses. Discipline doesn't disappear when you fall. It disappears only when you stop coming back. And that's the whole difference. You think you're not disciplined because your days aren't consistent. But real discipline is exactly the ability to continue even if yesterday was chaos. You're not weak. You're not lazy. You're human. A person who relied on emotions for too long. And once you understand this, the guilt fades. What remains is honesty. You don't need to be perfect to be disciplined. You just need to be willing to return. There's one thing people really don't like admitting. Motivation is an illusion. A beautiful one, sometimes powerful, sometimes inspiring, but still an illusion. Movies glorify it, music romanticizes it, and self-help culture worships it like a miracle cure. People treat motivation as the force that can change their life, the spark that launches something great. But the truth is simple. Motivation is a flame from a lighter, bright, loud, and gone in seconds. It appears suddenly, with a good song, a dramatic quote, or the classic, "I'll start on Monday." And in that moment you feel unstoppable. As if everything finally makes sense. As if this time you'll actually follow through. But give it a few days and the fire dies. Because motivation is not built to stay. It's a momentary impulse, not a long-term engine. And then you're left alone. Alone with your tasks, alone with your responsibilities, alone with the same life you wanted to escape. Most people think they failed again. They think they're weak. They think they lost discipline. But the truth is simple. Relying on motivation is like building a house on sand. It can help you start, but it will never lead you to the end. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions are unstable by nature, shifting, fading, returning unpredictably. Now look at discipline. It doesn't promise inspiration. It doesn't require excitement. It doesn't follow your mood. Discipline is a decision you made long before the moment when your emotions began to argue with you. That's why discipline is stronger than motivation. Motivation says, "I want to." Discipline says, "I will." Motivation follows emotion. Discipline follows direction. And once you truly understand this, a lot of your guilt disappears. You stop waiting for the right state. You stop waiting for a spark. You stop hoping for the perfect day to start. Discipline doesn't make life easy. It makes it predictable. You know what you'll do, regardless of how you feel. And that's why discipline always wins over motivation. It doesn't depend on your inner weather. It doesn't vanish when your mood dips. It doesn't require ideal conditions. It doesn't fear boring days or heavy days or empty days. It's quiet, but it's stable. Not inspiring, but reliable. Not flashy, but consistent. And consistency is what changes a life. Not emotional bursts, not rare spikes of inspiration, not short phases of enthusiasm. Repetition. Honest, steady repetition. That's what builds character. And character is what shapes destiny. Motivation can give you a single step. Discipline takes you all the way. There's something almost nobody notices. Discipline doesn't start with willpower. It starts with respect. But people are used to thinking the opposite. They imagine discipline as self-pressure, self-force, a constant internal fight. As if there are two sides inside you. One that wants to live, and another that keeps you on a short leash. And every day feels like a battle between them. But discipline is not a war. It's an agreement. An agreement between who you are now and who you want to become. Between your current state and your future. Between your emotions and your decisions. You've probably noticed how strangely the human mind works. We keep our word to others more easily than we keep it to ourselves. We can promise someone help, support, a meeting, and we'll show up. But when we promise something important to ourselves, we allow ourselves to step back, as if our own words matter less. That's where the absence of discipline begins, not in weakness, not in laziness, not in lack of motivation, but in the simple fact that we don't treat ourselves as someone worth respecting. Think about how you feel when someone lets you down, when they promise but don't follow through, when they speak beautifully but disappear afterward. You feel disappointment, distrust, irritation. Over time, you stop believing that person. Now ask yourself one question. How are you supposed to trust yourself if you do the same thing to yourself? That's why discipline matters. It's not did it, didn't do it. It's a system of inner trust. Every time you complete even the smallest action you promised yourself, you strengthen that trust a little more. It's like building a bridge, brick by brick, word by word, action by action. When you live this way, discipline stops feeling heavy. It becomes natural. You're no longer forcing yourself. You're simply following through on what you said. It stops being a fight and becomes an extension of honesty. But the reverse is also true. When you constantly promise yourself things and never do them, you lose respect for yourself. You start seeing yourself as someone who can't be trusted with their own decisions, and then you wonder why you can't force yourself to do anything. It's because you don't believe yourself, and you can't. You've broken your own agreements too many times. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about your words meaning something, at least to you. And here's the real power. When you rebuild self-respect through small actions, you become someone you can rely on, first and foremost, for yourself. And a person who can rely on themselves can change absolutely anything. See it now? Discipline isn't a command, it's respect. It's honesty. It's the steady voice inside you, the one you finally start trusting. When you do what you promised yourself, you're not just taking a step forward, you're taking your strength back. There's something people underestimate their entire lives. Destiny isn't shaped by big decisions, one breakthrough, or a moment of inspiration. It's shaped by repetition, quiet, steady, honest repetition. People wait for something grand, a surge of energy, a dramatic turning point, a spark that will flip their life upside down. But those moments are rare. And even when they happen, they change nothing unless consistent work follows them. It's small steps, repeated hundreds of times, that carve a new path. That's why discipline is the foundation. Most people overestimate rare bursts of effort and completely ignore the power of small, consistent actions. But look around. Everything that holds real value in life is built gradually, not suddenly. A strong body is built through repetition. Skill is built through repetition. Confidence is built through repetition. A life is rebuilt through repetition. The problem is simple. The human brain loves quick results. It seeks instant gratification, fast progress, the immediate sense of meaning. So when a person makes a small action that doesn't feel important in the moment, the brain tells them it's pointless. But here's what you must understand. Every small action is a brick in the structure you are building. And if you place even one brick a day, the structure grows. If you skip the day, it doesn't. It's that simple. What's more, big changes never feel big while they're happening. In the process, everything feels slow, almost invisible. You do something today, nothing changes. Tomorrow, nothing. A week later, still nothing. But 3 months pass, and when you look back, you realize you're no longer the same person. Discipline doesn't just change your results. It changes your identity. It creates a new version of you, a person who can, who does, who continues. Understand this clearly. Discipline is not a tool, it's a character. And character is what defines your path. When a person acts only when they feel like it, their life becomes a lottery. Today they work, tomorrow they don't. Today they're inspired, tomorrow empty. Today they move, tomorrow they stall. A life built on emotion cannot be stable. You become controlled by your inner weather. But discipline changes the terms of the game. It removes randomness. It removes chaos. It makes your life controllable. With discipline, you know exactly what tomorrow looks like because you decided it ahead of time. You're no longer dependent on inspiration, mood, or whatever is happening in your mind. You become the one building your life, step by step, action by action. And when that becomes part of who you are, something appears that people like to call destiny. Though there's nothing mystical about it. It's simply the life that grows out of consistent effort. Discipline shapes destiny because it turns desire into action, action into a path, that path into a result that can no longer be called an accident. When all the conversations about discipline come to an end, only one question really remains. Why does any of this matter? Why bother with effort, repetition, routine, returning again and again? Small steps that often feel pointless. Why keep moving forward when no one is watching? No one is praising you. No one is pushing you from behind. The answer is simple. Because no one else is supposed to. Throughout life, people wait for external saviors. A perfect moment, a strong push, a mentor, a sign from the universe. something that will finally change everything. But the truth is this: your life will not move until you decide to move it. Not in words, not in dreams, not in emotional bursts, but in small, ordinary actions. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be strong every day. You don't need to be motivated, inspired, or energized. You need to be honest, for one moment, in one decision, in one small step. Discipline is not the path of heroes. It's the path of ordinary people who are simply tired of living in chaos, tired of empty promises, tired of disappointing themselves, tired of waiting for the right moment. And one day they quietly say to themselves, enough. Not loudly, not dramatically, not in some emotional breakthrough, just honestly. And that's where a new life actually begins. Not with euphoria, not with motivation, not with a cinematic start, but with that exact moment when you stop running from yourself and start acting, even if the steps are small. And the farther you go, the clearer one truth becomes. Discipline is not restriction. It is freedom. Freedom from emotional instability, freedom from chaos, freedom from the constant pendulum of I want, I don't want, I can, I can't. Freedom from endlessly postponing the most important parts of your life. You become a person who doesn't wait for the perfect day. You become a person who creates direction. You become someone you can trust with your own future. And at some point, you notice that everything around you has changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, not with fireworks, but through hundreds of small proofs that you finally stand on your own side. Because discipline is a bridge between who you were and who you can become. And crossing it every day is not an obligation. It's an honor.